Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. We are taking a closer look at Amendment 1. So there are 4 amendments that you'll be voting on at the polls. Early voting is underway, and you can vote on yes or no on these 4 amendments. We're looking at Amendment 1. We have with us someone who is very much opposed, Jason Freeman. He's political director at SEIU, and we kind of set the table for this, where I tried to give some of the other side, and we're going to start taking calls now. So let's just go to the phones. Let's go to Robert. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Go right ahead,
Good to be
Robert.
with you all this evening, Ben.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to start off, and first off, you did explain a little bit why we only have one side listed. As a fifth-generation Tennessee college graduate, I find the fact that you play on people who do not know to be insulting, as well as narrow-minded. Mr. Freeman pushes a liberal ideologue that we in the South have rejected for 75 years. I believe if he is all for it, then I recommend he moves to Minneapolis or to Illinois, while we live the way we have always lived here in the South. And with that, I will say good evening.
Okay. All right. So he's saying this is the way we do it in the South. It's worked for us. And if you don't like it, you can move to a state where they are different. What do you say there?
I guess that the yes argument of attracting people to come into the state is pretty selective then, of who they want to be here. So, I think one of the beauties of our country is it is a free country to move where you want to live. I happen to really like Nashville. I like Tennessee. I just would like working people to make a living wage and not worry about dying on the job.
Okay, let's go to Charles. Hello, Charles.
Oh, good evening to you two. And thank you for letting me on. I do have a question for the guest, and then I have a statement. I voted no on Amendment 1, and here's my reasoning. We have the law on the books already, but it seems the supermajority is trying to elevate this to constitutional status and like enshrining this to make it much more difficult in the future to walk it back. Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, that's explicitly what they have said. As I said, Senator Brian Kelsey, who proposed this amendment, said directly to Senator Kyle, we have to put this in the Constitution in case people like you ever have power and try to take it out.
Just in case, yeah.
Just in case.
Okay, and my comment is about when these same people talk about individual freedom, individual liberty. I've worked for corporations. I've worked for smaller businesses. I've done whatever it takes to make a living, and I found that there's a corporate collectivism where management has their meetings, they discuss, they come to a consensus, they're Kaizen, and then they present it to the workers that's it. Why cannot the workers do the same thing? And I'm off the phone. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, some might say that might not be as productive for a company. I mean, that opens up all kinds of things, but what do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we find is that in unionized workplaces, we have things like labor management committees where representatives from the bargaining unit, we say, or the workers, meets with representatives from management. And a lot of the time what we find out is they can get ahead of problems. They hear innovative ideas from the workers, the people actually executing the mission of the company, and it ends up in a much more productive, much more efficient, just a better work environment. And a lot of times that's going to work out much better for the company, because when you have people that take pride in going to work, that don't feel like they're being taken advantage of or exploited, I keep hearing this term like quiet quitting that people are talking about, and that's not quiet quit. That is people who are recognizing that they're being taken advantage of, they're not being paid what they're worth, and they're not going to put forward effort for someone who's not respecting their value, right, as an employee.
All right. Let's go to Larry on line 1. Hello, Larry.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Doing fine.
Doing well, Larry.
What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I had a comment about the comparisons between the other states, Minnesota, Illinois. I think those are a bit disingenuous. Per Google, Tennessee does pay 12.8% less than those states, but their cost of living is 17 to 18% more. So it's a bit disingenuous to say that just because those states pay more, that those are better systems. I truly don't think we want to be Chicago or Minneapolis here in Nashville. I think the other gentleman talking about, if you want to stay there, if you don't like the policies or whatever, I disagree with that. I think as a U.S. citizen, you should live anywhere you would like to live. But I do agree that if you do like those policies, maybe you should live where those policies are implemented and not always try to bring them to other cities and other states that don't already have those types of policies. I just don't think we can compare ourselves to those states dollar for dollar and say that they're better just because their wages are higher. I don't think that's a very narrow view of what's happening in those states. Thank you.
Thank you. He's saying cost of living is higher in those states and that we don't want to be Chicago or Minneapolis, that it's not appropriate to compare. What about that?
Well, I'm not sure what the implication is. I've been to both Chicago and Minneapolis, and they're both great cities that are great to visit, and I wouldn't mind living there either. But I think when we talk about cost of living, it's relative to communities, right? So the cost of living in Nashville, I'm sure, is I'd have to look up the statistics about Minneapolis, but all of the major cities across the country are facing the same problem of rising costs, and we see rising rent, and it's increasingly unaffordable, and we see people getting priced out. And that is a two-part equation, right? If you don't make high enough wages and you're getting priced out of the city, making more money is going to address that as well. So I don't have the numbers in front of me of the cost of living, so I have to take the gentleman's word for it I'd have to look that up to see if that's accurate or not. But certainly the wages across the board are lower, and I think just the number, $24,000 a year less, that's not just Minneapolis, that's the entire state. Like, it's the average of the entire state. Right.
And if there were a union, do wages go up?
Always. Unionized workplaces are always higher. On average, workers make $8,000 to $11,000 more a year.
Then why are so many employees reluctant to have a union? There are also, I guess, dues that come along with that, and there are other things that go along with it.
Well, I think what we find is the reason that people are reluctant, I think you're seeing this at Starbucks, where you have a man like Howard Schultz, who is a billionaire who wanted to run for president simply because he had a lot of money. And what he's doing is firing employees who want to exercise their rights. He's fired organizers, like workers who were organizing other workers. He's trying to do something that, to my understanding, shouldn't be allowed, which is to try to offer higher benefits and pay to non-union workers, which is a tactic that I believe is not allowed. But the problem that we have is we have a lot of laws, like a right-to-work law, which weaken worker protections. And people are not reluctant to join unions. They're afraid sometimes because, rightfully so, they can be fired for no reason and not have much recourse. Similarly, that's, the reason that companies will tolerate people dying on the job is because the fine for a death on the job, and I forgot to look this before I went up, but it's something like $8,000 or something. It's not very prohibitive that, if someone dies on the job because of an unsafe working condition, there's not a lot of strong penalties. So I think what we are seeing and what this amendment is about is we're seeing workers across the country, working people standing up to demand better life and benefits. And what you're seeing at union drives, like at Amazon, where they won the first election in Queens, I think, and they've had a struggle in the next two, is because the intimidation tactics of the bosses and the CEOs are just, unchecked, and there's so much that the employer can do to retaliate against workers, and we have to change the laws to give workers more protections.
All right, so we are talking with Jason Freeman. He's political director at SEIU, Local 205, talking about unions, also talking about Amendment 1 that is on the ballot. We'll take a break. If you're on the line, hold on. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll be back right after this.